We are here to have another live session today with our guest. And just a moment, I'm still not able to start my live session here. Okay. So no problem. We are going to have this live session right now. We have with us Dr. Nirmala Rajagopalan. She is a practicing physician, and after completing her medical schooling, she felt pleasure in dealing with HIV or AIDS patient, and she also dealt with patients who have addictions. Later, she decided to start with her own center caring for people with diabetes and hypertension. So thank you, ma'am, for being here with us and acknowledging our call because this is so important for us. So you being on our platform gives us really pleasure. And before, just I would like to know more about you before we proceed, ma'am.
Okay, so thanks, Kanis, for having me. Like I said, this is the first time I'm ever going on YouTube live, and it's been quite an experience. I think you've been inundated with messages from me right through the week on how do we do it, how do we go on, and all of that. Yeah. So, and to all the viewers who have logged in, thank you for taking the time off to be part of this discussion, because like Kani said, it's so important, nutrition and how it affects children, right? I basically have gotten into the field of nutrition. I'm a doctor. I've done my MBBS, I've done my specialization in HIV medicine. But I am a person who has had metabolic issues right from childhood. It started with obesity right from the age of 2. And by the time I was about 20, 21 years old, I was already pre diabetic. I also started having moderate levels of hypertension. My cholesterol levels were high. And obviously you can imagine, I went from pillar to post trying to see how I need to solve them. Medication, of course, was always prescribed. At some point of time, people started saying, you need to go in for surgery because you need to reduce weight. However, what I felt I need to do is to explore natural ways of taking care of my problems. And by just changing my diet around, okay, I don't usually use the word diet, I say food style, because diet always makes us think very negatively, right? So, by changing the way I eat, my food style, I was able to lose weight. I've lost 30 kgs. I'm not saying that I'm not overweight any longer. I still am overweight. But for a person who was continuously putting on weight, no matter what, I've been able to arrest that process. Okay, like I said, I lost 30 kilos. My diabetes completely came under control. I was able to get off medication. Some of the medicines that were being used for high BP also got reduced because of the kind of food style changes I made. So when I saw this, and it came with a lot of education, I had to kind of go online and look at research papers. I had to read books. I had to talk to people who have been modifying their food style. And when I saw that this is working for me, then I said, okay, it's high time I started telling people about this. Start educating people that if you are on so much of medication for diabetes and if your diabetes is still not under control, there are hormonal issues which need to be corrected. And for doing this, the best way to do it, apart from medication, and medication doesn't always work well for all people, is to do it through your diet. And so I got certified. I did my certification from the American Nutrition Academy. And from there, I've started kind of coaching people on how to bring their weight under control or their diabetes under control, autoimmune issues, thyroid related issues. Yeah. So that's my journey in brief.
Wonderful, Dr. Nirmala, because I am damn sure that you are the right person who can guide us on nutrition now for kids. Because these days it has been so challenging to talk about nutrition. Kids are really not bothered about their nutrition use, and we've seen so many other chronic diseases in children these days. So as you said, you have got that first-hand experience about your own challenges that you had during your childhood days.
Yes.
And I simply loved that food style instead of dieting. So
Yes.
that was simply super because slight changes in the language that we use, it becomes so easy for us to integrate all that and move ahead very easily. So
Very.
things turn out to be very simple sometimes. So I just love that. So moving on to certain questions that I have regarding nutrition. The very first thing is when it comes to our children these days, it's very challenging to make our children understand or eat healthy food. It is for them because all these things it's very something crucial, and they don't want to listen to all about nutrition and all that thing. So how can we make our children eat healthy food? What do you
Yeah.
think?
So Kanis, like I said, my expertise is mainly with adults, but nutrition is something that it crosses all kinds, it has to go across all kinds of ages, right? Now,
Mm,
with any child, who do they learn from first? They learn from the parents, right? So
okay.
we have to, as adults, set the ball rolling. We have to lead by example. Simple thing. We can't tell our child, you know what, eat all your vegetables. But when the child looks at us, we are eating one roti or maybe half a roti sometimes and a little bit of dal on the side, or we just have khichdi or we just have upma and we leave it. But to our saying, eat your vegetables, right? So if we don't follow what we are telling our children, obviously they are not going to learn the right thing. The second thing I would say is do not store junk food at home. Again, it goes by how we lead by example. Today, if you see in many homes, children have access, easy access to junk food. By junk food, I don't just mean the pizza and the burgers, okay? I also mean things like biscuits. I mean things like having chocolates at home, ice cream at home. Children can just tell, you know, Mama, I'm hungry. I'll go have a biscuit, and they can actually have it because it's so readily available to them. When we were growing up, we one is I don't think most families stored as much of these processed foods as you see nowadays. So, like I said, setting that example of letting children know that junk food is not readily available to you at home. If at all you are going to order in and things like that, it will be occasional. It will be maybe just on the weekend. So, what are the messages we are giving them right from childhood? And yes, it's not easy for children to just accept what we are saying, but then as adults we do have to set some ground rules. Okay, that would be point number 3, ground rules that we set for them. Example again, finish your vegetables. Now I'm not saying that we give the child negative experiences, so it's not that we make sure that they finish a vegetable that they absolutely hate. That's not what I'm saying. They should not grow up with that kind of a negative psychology where food is concerned. But okay, if the child does not like green peas, for example, as a parent, we would need to explore what is the other vegetable that the child is ready to eat. Is the child ready to eat chickpeas or chana instead, or rajma maybe, rather than forcing green peas on the child, which the child doesn't like, right? And then the fourth thing, of course, is the influence that the school has on our children. Today's children know things like protect your environment. They know reduce, reuse, and recycle. Why do they know that? Because we teach them to this. Teach this to them in their schools, right? The same way, food plays such a big role in the growth and development of a child. But how much of attention is paid in the kind of nutrition-related information that we give children? And for this, of course, it is the parents who can make the biggest difference by going to schools and addressing this issue within schools. Uh, School canteens today, again, junk food is available to the children, right? I'm not saying all schools. There are schools which are very, very, responsible, and they know what kind of food the child should have. But many other schools, you have burgers being served, you have noodles being served, you have all kinds of cakes and pastries being served. So the school also has a role to play. If the mother is telling the child no junk food, but junk food is available in the school, then again we are sending mixed messages. Now, I'll tell you why I'm saying this. If you have heard of Jamie Oliver, he's a world renowned chef. He worked in uh, he worked within the school system in the UK in order to change the way the school canteens were providing food for the children. It's taken time, but there are schools that have changed the kind of food that's given to children in school, right? So, here, what is the biggest force we have going for us? It's the parents. The parents are the voice of the child. So, the parents need to take this up and send petitions or work with the school board in order to bring about these changes. So, in summary, how do we make our children understand what nutrition is all about? First, we lead by example. The child gets the same message in terms of seeing what we eat and what the child is supposed to eat. Second, stop this junk food culture. Somebody said the junk food, and it's so true. Okay. Third would be that we have to have some ground rules, and those ground rules will stand by the child as the child grows up. Maybe once they're a teenager, they'll say, okay, who's going to listen to mama and dada? I'll eat what I want. But at some point of time, this memory and this recall will come back, and the child who then becomes an adult will start making responsible choices where food is concerned. And finally, the school systems have to be cognizant about the fact that food plays an important role where the child's development is concerned.
Well said, Nirmala. But yes, it is a big work to be done behind. I mean, working with the school authorities to talk,
Yes.
explain them junk food to them, and yes, also our children. The authorities do something and doesn't get implemented because the first school is home. So how do I explain nutrition to my 6-year-old child? It's very difficult to get down to their level of understandings and talk about such things.
True,
So how
very
do
true.
I explain?
See, one is uh, to kind of turn back the clock and go back to the 70s or 60s or 50s, where people were eating healthier. That's going to be a very long drawn process. So we have to start addressing this issue in like have small victories where our children's food and nutrition is concerned, right?
Yes,
The first thing I will always say is lead by example. You cannot tell the child you have to eat what I serve you on your plate, but when it comes to your own dinner time, you're ordering from outside or you're having a Coke with your dinner. All right.
that is
So
important.
lead by example, and that really plays a big role. The second thing is have age appropriate conversations with the child, right? So, for example, Ria, do you know that carrots have so much of vitamins and it's so good for your bones? Ria, do you know eggs are good for you because it helps your brain, it helps your bones, it helps your muscles. So if you want to be strong and grow up well, also be able to pay attention to what they're teaching you in school, you need to have an egg. So age appropriate conversations. The third thing that I would say is as the child grows older, like 6 years and plus, get them involved. I don't mean girls only, I mean girls and boys. Get them involved in small works along with you in the kitchen, right? They love being mama's or dada's helper. So let them get involved in the process, whether it is to just cut up your leaves for the salad, whether it is to help you knead the atta, clean the rice. And then when you lay it on the table and say, you know what, today Ria helped me to make the salad, Ria's going to have a big smile on her face and probably also eat the salad without making a big fuss. So
Yes,
how we need to start communicating and also get them involved in the process, because today, Ruby, many people don't know how to cook because food is so easily available from restaurants.
yeah,
So this cooking culture also is going down, and that does finally have a big impact on our health.
definitely. When they become a part of the process, they understand it's so much, it's not all that easy to make and eat. So much effort is involved behind that.
uh,
So,
also say that if the child is introduced to this earlier, the child begins to realize that it's not overly complicated, because many people kind of get put off because they think cooking is very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I usually what I do right now with my teen also and my toddlers, I start using some other recipes like different, some recipes of different states so that they get some changes there. Otherwise,
Exactly. The same
when that
would
flavor
all,
changes, some
yeah,
good spices, you change that particular spices and add something new to it,
yes,
then definitely they'll have some better taste, right?
yeah.
So that's how I do.
Oh, your little one is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's ill today.
So it's
So,
very
I'd
rightly.
like to ask Dr. Nirmala that in case whatever now child is into addiction or sometimes child is into the junk food kind of a thing, how can we resolve this junk food problem that we have in our children? Once they get addicted to these junk foods, how can we help them to come out of this?
Yeah. So the question is, where is the child getting this junk food from, right? As an adult, we are obviously making it available to them. Now, right from the time that the child starts having solid or semi solid food, what is the kind of food that we have introduced to them? If we are putting food from a box and then giving it to them, obviously that's where the junk food culture is starting, right? uh, so like I said, it has to be a policy within homes that we are not going to stock junk food. Now the problem is this definition of junk food. Okay, a lot of people don't understand that even the biscuits that we give the child as a snack, as a post school snack, what do they have in it? If you read the contents, and I keep repeating myself, I think people who know me are kind of fed up of me telling them this, but read the labels on whatever food that you're buying. The biscuits that you give your children, okay, they have sugar in them, they have a lot of refined flour in them, okay, they have emulsifiers are literally like detergents, because what they do is they make the food become smooth and they mix it all together, right? So these are all additives in the food, and this is what we are getting the child used to. So, and once the child gets used to that, then to kind of tell them, no, you can't have junk food, it is going to be a challenge. So, right from childhood, what are the tastes that we are kind of, ensuring that the child starts developing and liking? It makes a lot of difference in the kind of choices the child will make later. Okay. The second thing, like I told you, is the school system. What is provided in the school? If in school you have access to junk food and then you're telling the child, no, you cannot have junk food, that's going to be very difficult for the child. It's not the child who has to make those decisions. We as adults are in that position of responsibility where we need to make those decisions for the child. Okay. The third thing is, we need to have more policies which kind of, especially advertising. Today on cigarettes, you have labels which have a warning, right? That cigarette smoking is harmful for your health. But do we see this kind of language on food products? And yet there's enough scientific research that will tell you sugar is bad, maltodextrin is bad, high fructose corn syrup is bad. But do we see these warnings on food? We don't. Instead we have advertising where you show two children going in the night, opening a cupboard, taking out some chocolate or ice cream and having it without the parents watching, and we all consider it cute, right? So this advertising culture also has to change. There has to be, I'm not saying we don't advertise, but that has to be done responsibly, because who is the viewer over there? It's not just the parents, it's the child as well, right? So again, it has to start at the home, it has to be repeated within the school, and there also have to be policy changes so that our children are not constantly bombarded by messages that junk food is actually healthy.
True. I mean, these are like subconscious messages going into their minds. They don't realize, and even we don't realize they are picking it all up. And yes, subconscious mind makes you do what is not right for you sometimes.
Yeah.
So, well, very well explained. You very well explained this question. But why is nutrition so important in children? I mean, yes, in adults also. But how should we explain this to them that it is so very important?
Yeah. So, Ruby, if you see today, all right, like I was telling Kanis also, when I was a child, I had the problem of obesity. I still am overweight because it's right from childhood a metabolic issue for me. Okay. And that's what got me into nutrition in the first place. But today, if you see, the number of children in a classroom who are overweight and some are obese, okay, it has increased. If you see the statistics in India, there are newspaper articles where you see that childhood obesity is on the rise. So what happens along with childhood obesity? The child is then going to be more prone to developing diabetes. Okay. And we see diabetes setting in earlier and earlier. We have 15-year-old children, we have 10-year-old children who have higher glucose levels in their blood. We have children who have higher triglycerides. We have children with fatty liver. Now, all of these things, diabetes, fatty liver, like I said, high triglycerides, all of these are issues that we see usually in older adults. But today we are seeing it in children. Okay. So, what is the thing that's causing it? It's not the environment, it's not the pollution, it's the kind of food that we are giving our children, right? Now, it's common sense. When the baby is conceived in the womb, the mother knows, I need to eat healthy because my baby needs to be healthy, right? So we know that at a very, very basic level, we know that food is going to determine how our child grows. The second thing is that once the baby is born, breastfeeding, right? Now, breastfeeding, it has gone through such a complex and difficult cycle where at one point of time people thought breastfeeding is not important. Today we know that breastfeeding is so important for the baby's overall development, because breast milk has all the nutrients that's required, the carbohydrates, proteins, and all of that in accordance to what the baby can have and digest. Now, while I was, like I said, when I keep reading up about nutrition related stuff, I also get myself certified from time to time. So when I was doing that, there was something that blew my mind. Human milk has something called HMO, that is human milk oligosaccharides. Okay. Now, these are complex carbohydrates. Guess what the function of this is? It is not to give energy to the child. Human milk oligosaccharides, or the HMO, has no function of absorption for the child. It doesn't give nutrition for the child. What it does is it passes from the mouth of the baby right till the intestine, and it provides food for the gut bacteria. Okay. And the gut bacteria has a very big role to play in terms of the development of the brain, because there is a gut brain nerve axis, and this nerve axis is fed by the kind of chemicals that the gut bacteria produces. And this totally blew my mind, because human milk is supposed to be nutrition for the baby, but the fact that there is this component in the breast milk which is not meant for the baby's stomach but actually meant for the gut bacteria. Why? Because the gut bacteria plays a big role in how the brain of the child and how the nerves of the child develop. The immunity of the child also develops based on how good the gut bacteria is. The other thing is that today, like I said, there is so much of junk food available. So sugary items, food with a lot of refined flour in it. Okay. These are all known to be inflammatory. Okay. Inflammation means swelling, or at a very basic level, swelling, pain, those kind of things are caused by inflammation. But we are introducing it at a very young age in children. So even though the child is active, the child is playing outside and studying well and all of that, we are seeing inflammatory changes begin at childhood. So that's why, like I said, there is an increase in the number of children with diabetes or being pre-diabetic, having a high cholesterol. All of these are inflammatory conditions, right? And today, we also see an increase in the number of children falling within the autistic spectrum. We have a rise in the number of children who are challenged by things like ADHD. Now, these are all things that are connected with our brain activity, right? So if the gut health is not good, if we are going to keep putting inflammatory substances into the gut, and then how is the child going to kind of be able to deal with these kind of problems or challenges, right? Yeah. So nutrition is not just for growth, it's not just for vertical growth, but it's also because our mind and our brain has to function properly. Yes.
That's amazing, Nirmala. I mean,
That's really nice.
it's lifestyle diseases are also, I mean, actually the lifestyle diseases that we suffer later on in our lives, lifestyle begins in the early
Yes.
years.
Yes.
That has to be introduced in the initial stages only. And yes, that is also very amazing that you just shared that there's a brain nerve that you said. So even the brain development is dependent on the gut. So
Yes.
it is very, very, you have to
Yes.
eat mindfully also to be
So
growing.
yeah, even I got to know about the secrets of the breast milk. I was really, it is really wonderful to have that particular knowledge. And since we deal with the brain capacity or attention span and focus in children, we have workshops also based on these things. So what I feel is, I think children should have that capacity through their nutrition. They can increase their capacity or brain capacity also. What do you say about this, Dr. Nirmala? Because the food gives us a lot of and it can enhance our brain capacities. That's what I believe. And most parents are not aware of, because I have my own family members who just go out and they go for an outing. Parents are out and they just give some kind of ice creams. They keep it or store in the fridge, and they just call the children. They say, once you return from school, take those ice creams and have it. So I was
Exactly.
like, oh my God, what is happening here? This
Yeah.
is not the way, right? So
Yes.
I wonder if parents knew that the brain also, the capacity of the brain increases, and they are able to focus better and have that attention better when they have right nutritious food. I
Mm.
think parents would never do that mistake.
Yes,
So what have
exactly.
you got to say about this, Dr. Nirmala?
Oh, I agree with you a lot, Kanis. Like I said, a lot of us believe that we are giving healthy food to children, right? We don't know how to interpret a label on food items. Yes, the labels are there, but how many of us actually read it? I'll give you an example. Recently, we went out shopping, and my husband pointed out to me, hey, this hazelnut flavored cocoa, because he knows that I like hazelnut and I like chocolate. So, and it is written sugar free, right? So I was also excited. Oh my gosh, sugar free. So I can just like have it once in a while when I'm craving chocolate and things like that. I looked at it and it's sugar free, no doubt. They've not put the white sugar, but they have used something called um, sucralose instead of sugar. And sucralose is harmful for the liver, right? And they also have maltodextrin. So you have cocoa powder and then you put maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is like a white, starchy, lab produced starch. It's produced in the lab. Okay. So obviously, then when you put that in milk, it's going to be nice and silky and, yummy to have. But is it actually a health food? And it's in the health food section, right? So we are being, we are not being given the correct information where nutrition is concerned. All right. And in terms of does it affect the brain, it does, because we are putting inflammatory compounds into the children at a very young age. So if a child has, for example, has trouble focusing, has trouble sitting in a place and paying attention, right? I would advise the parent first remove junk food. Okay. Therapy, yes, has a major role, but along with that, even the food has a major role. So remove the junk food, remove the sugar, eliminate all this highly refined flours. I'm not saying we can do it 100%. Uh, our lifestyle has evolved into a junk food culture. So it is, like I said, we look at the small victories. But at least if 90% of the time we can avoid junk food, see whether the child's health is improving. Today, like I said, gut plays such a big role in our brain development. But we see so many children having things like irritable bowel syndrome. They barely eat something and they need to run to the toilet. Why is that happening? Because the gut health is getting affected. Now, if the gut health is going to be constantly affected, will it not affect the brain health of the child, right? The other thing is this culture of chewing our food. Today, the children are in such a rush to reach school on time, or even when they come back, it's gulp down something and sit down for your study. So, this whole, when we start depending on breakfast from a box where we just put it into milk and the child has it for breakfast, we are cutting out fiber completely. And like I said, fiber is one of the most important things for the gut bacteria, so that the gut bacteria can then provide the nutrients required for the brain. But we are removing fiber, because if you have fiber in the box, the food is not going to be preserved. Okay. So, and again, the whole concept of chewing your food, making the food easily absorbable by the whole digestive system, that also the child is losing out on. So that's one thing I would always say. If you are asking me about brain development and the child's overall development, start looking at avoiding junk food. Make that one of the ground rules. Start even working with schools in order to introduce a policy where junk food is not going to be accessible within the school premises. And I know that there are schools doing it. It's not that there aren't schools that are doing it. The
Very
other
few of them, although.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say is that we look at wholesome nutrition. So, wholesome nutrition meaning the child would need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates come from grains, whole grains, comes from our lentils. It also comes to a great extent from the kind of vegetables that we eat. The child needs protein. Protein comes from either eggs, meat, dairy. The child needs fats. Fats come from ghee, butter, olive oil, coconut oil, the nuts that are available to us. So make sure that, and apart from that, like I said, fiber, and of course fermented food. In our country, the easiest way in which we can have fermented food is from yogurt or curds, right? And especially if you make it at home and use A2 milk in order to make the curds, because A2 protein is more easily digested by our human digestive system. So make sure that you're making curds that's made out of A2 milk. So these are all the changes that we need to start considering when we want the child to have more wholesome nutrition. And when we look again, when today yogurt is available easily, but what do we do to the yogurt? We go and add sugar and flavoring and put a few pieces of fruit again in the guise of it being healthy. But then you're not giving the child fermented food. You're giving the child dessert when you do that.
Yes.
Very
So
nice.
what is A2 milk, Dr. Nirmala? Can you just explain what is
So
that?
A2 milk is more from the desi cows. Okay. The milk itself, the protein in it is a little different from the easily available A1 milk. So if you look at the milk packet today, it is written on the milk packet whether it is A1 or A2. And A2, usually when the child is a little, having a little bit of bowel disturbance, even in adults, a lot of times when we change from A1 to A2, we see a change even in their digestion related issues. Yeah. Like I said, the protein is more easily digestible by the human digestive tract.
Got it. Yeah. So we have those pasteurized milk packs that we have right now. So maybe those are all A1 milk.
Most of the time that's A1. So, and today, luckily, because again, there are enough people who are worried about nutrition. So A2 milk is available in the country. And A2 is from the indigenous desi cows, right? And most of these desi cows, they are left to feed left to feed on grass. They're not given only these concentrated hormone fed food kind of thing.
True. Yes, in Delhi, it's easily available, A2 milk. So there are vendors providing.
Yes.
So we have also started using that only now. I didn't know
Yeah.
the reason behind, you just explained. Milk is
Uh,
expensive, it's
I
good for
didn't
us,
know
so
all
let's
the
just
names
start.
then, yeah, but I too have switched long back.
Hmm.
Once I have my second son, I started using A2 milk only.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
really
So when we talk about, we deal with the mind. So a healthy body can only, accommodate a healthy mind. So all I knew about immunity was like, when I was supposed to feed breast milk, there's something called colostrum I had heard. So if it is fed in the first 3 days, so you're imparting about 90 years of immunity to your child. It's the yellow fluid that is uh,
Before the
given
comes up.
before the milk comes out. Yeah. And I just knew for children, I was just aware of that. And immunity specifically talking about, I mean, how can we increase immunity by serving them the right kind of food? Like you rightly said, we need to have a combination of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, vitamins, everything. So how can we increase immunity through that?
Okay. Yeah. So the thing is that what we don't realize is that most of our immunity, 80% of our immunity comes from the gut. Okay. We all think that immunity comes from the blood, but that is just responsible for 20% of our immunity. Most of our immunity is being generated, the signals to generate immunity is from our gut. So if we eat the right kind of foods, like I said, fiber rich, ferment, and also fermented foods, then we are providing the right kind of food for our immunity to improve. Now, when we eat fiber rich food, that means we are looking at incorporating all of these things. So good carbohydrates, good vegetables to give the fiber, good amount of like nuts and seeds and things like that, so that not only the fat but even the fiber is available. So when we have a wholesome, well planned meal, okay, that is what is going to provide the gut with enough fiber and also the option for fermentation, so that there is enough of signals being sent to our blood and to our brain. So the brain for brain development, memory, energy, for our blood for immunity and other good chemicals like, for example, serotonin. Serotonin is so important for our moods, right? Now,
Yeah.
serotonin, what we don't realize is actually some of the chemicals responsible for serotonin is produced in the gut. It's not produced in the brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never knew
So
that.
yeah, like I said, nutrition is a big mystery to most of us, and the more we get into it, then we realize, oh my gosh, every now and then you get these eye openers and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I knew this.
I think there were so many bulb on moments for me as well when I
Yeah, for me
spoke to you.
also.
Because
Just
uh,
now, I remember. So my grandmother, she used to give us. We used to go and tell her, "I'm having headache." Suppose if I used to tell her I'm having headache, she used to come up with a churan, and she used to just give us that. Ye kha lo. And when we grew up, we used to tell her, "हर बात के लिए चूरन देते हो आप?" तो
Hmm,
she used to say, "सब कुछ पेट से होता है," you know that. And we used to make fun of her that time, and I can now relate to all those things. That
exactly.
gut is responsible for your brain, for your immunity, for your lifestyle. Everything is dependent on your stomach.
Yes, it is.
yes, and I
Yeah,
think
like
we as
you
parents
go.
need to plan a lot for all these things because pre-plan is very much important, I feel right now, because the way you said about the gut and how immunity, this you can produce all your energy, only your, whatever misconceptions that we had or some myths regarding nutrition also, you had broken it down. I felt so many things we have to get into our learning system and understand it very deeply
Yes.
about this. So, what I would like to ask you, Dr. Nirmala, what as parents do we need to plan regarding our children's nutrition or our diet plan? I can say, what do we need to plan?
You read my mind, because I was just going to tell you that there's something that I want to add to whatever we have spoken so far. So, see, let's not forget the fact that today in most homes, both the mother and the father are working, and fair enough. I mean, we need to have two incomes because of the kind of costs that we incur. Plus, women, obviously, we are getting educated. I'm a working woman. You both are working women, and it is important that we have that balance in our lives. One of the things that does happen because of the fact that both parents are working is that sometimes the stress with work is so much that we don't really have the time and energy to then focus on the food that's prepared at home. So the good thing in India is that we have the option for where there is affordability to look at having somebody who will do the cooking for us, right? So we can at least then tell them what we want made for the day. If we don't have the time to cook. The other thing is that today, like I said, if we also look at the amount of food that we spend on ordering in, today there are so many apps, you just press a button and food is delivered to your home, right? But we look at, okay, one time bill is this much, but during the month, how much have we spent on ordering in for a family of 4 or 6 or whatever? Now, instead of putting all that money in ordering in, why not employ a person who will actually come work for 1 or 2 hours in your home and prepare the kind of meal that you have asked them to prepare? Because how much ever you try to order clean from a restaurant, we don't know the quality of food that's being given to us. We don't know if it's food that has been frozen for a long period of time and then being used. We don't know what are the ingredients that go into these kind of foods. If you're very sure, then it's a different thing. But most of the time, we don't. The second thing I would say is that today with the apartments, and especially post the pandemic, or during the pandemic, we saw a lot of women going into catering, right? Home-based cooks. And it helped. It was such a blessing at a time when people were sick and people didn't know where to get good food from and all of that. Today, if we live in a gated community or if we live in an apartment, instead of ordering from a restaurant, why not give somebody in our own community that chance to kind of send us home cooked food? Okay. Now, I'm saying this because this is practical. Very often when I work with even adults and when I see that a 30-year-old, for example, has high cholesterol, one of the first things I ask them is, do you eat out a lot? And one of the main answers that I get is, by the time I get back from work, I am so tired and exhausted, I don't have the time to cook. Right? So yes, I order in and I try to order healthy, but I do order in at least 3 or 4 times a week. So if we are going to do that, then plan your meal, speak to somebody who can provide that meal for you. Okay. So like I said, even if you are cooking at home, make sure that the plate has good carbohydrates. Good carbohydrates come from whole grains. So you're looking as far as possible, look at the unpolished rice, like the red rice or the brown rice. Look at a good amount of vegetables, because vegetables not only give you carbohydrates, it also gives you fiber. It also makes the child chew. So the brain signals start going, and the brain knows what is the kind of nutrition that is coming into the body then, and then the whole digestive system is then prepared to break down that food and start absorbing the food for the child's nourishment. Okay. Apart from that, we also need to have enough protein. Now, whether a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, go and read up about what are the sources of protein that are available, right? And make sure that we include generous amounts of protein, age appropriate, weight appropriate. I'm not saying you just like let the child only eat chicken or only eat egg. I'm not saying that, but there has to be a good quantity of protein on the plate as well. And along with that, the good fats that are used for cooking. I'm not saying that you need to give extra fat to the child, but use good quality fat. So use your ghee, use butter, use coconut oil wherever possible for the cooking, right? Olive oil if required, but our own desi forms of fat, like I said, ghee, coconut oil, butter. These are good mediums for cooking. So when you do that and add in one helping of yogurt every day, not the flavored yogurt, Okay, when you do this, you will, one thing is, when it's done systematically, you will see that the child is getting enough nourishment, and there will be various signs, obviously. The child's health is good, the child's immunity is good. If the child was having problems with attention span, you will see changes there. Okay, if the child has been a little moody, you will see changes there. Okay, the other thing that you will also see is that the child, see, when you're feeding the child good food, the body is not going to crave junk. And this is one thing that I experience with everybody that I work with. They tell me that, oh, initially all of them are kind of upset because I'm telling them cut out sugar, cut out refined flour. Okay, it's not just the children, it's even the adults who literally have a tantrum or throw a fuss when I tell them cut out sugar, because sugar is so addictive. That's another thing that we kind of fail to realize, that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. Okay, it is as addictive. And because we don't know the kind of harm that sugar causes, this addiction to sugar is not addressed within our society. Okay, so when we give the child good food, wholesome food, even this desire to keep munching on something that's a snack, that kind of goes away. The child is full with a meal. And what kind of snacks do we give the child? Are we looking at biscuits? Are we looking at, like Ruby said, ice, or you said there's ice cream easily available? Are those the kind of snacks we are keeping at home? Or are we going to teach the children snacks are in the form of nuts, fruits, cheese? Okay, when you want to, like you again said, when you want to give the child something interesting, make a tikki at home where you use basin rather than buying a burger. Make cutlets at home using egg whites rather than ordering a pizza. Do things like that so that the child knows that there is a healthy way to eat, and you start introducing that right from childhood.
Wonderful, Nirmala. Like, it's been amazing for us also. Acha, you said you talked about whole grains. So what about atta, roti that we eat?
Yeah. So when we the atta is fine as long as there is no gluten related issues. The kind of atta is what matters. Okay, if we are going to use atta that is like so fine, and like the minute you mix it, it's like pour water, you get this gelatinous substance which kind of resembles maida, then you know that the atta is stripped of fiber. Now I know, growing up, we used to go to the flour mill and get the wheat ground. Okay,
Uh,
and we used to use that at home. But today, when we are using packaged atta, at least when I make chapatis out of that at home for the rest of the family, I do see the difference in the way that mixes with water versus what when you kind of buy the unrefined atta. So you need that little bit of fiber in the atta, right?
mm,
Now, how do we do this? One is, yes, we need to start having people, even the people who are producing the atta should start realizing that they have a responsibility in what they're packaging and selling as good food, right? So, and if we consumers start being intelligent about what we buy and how we buy, then the food industry will have to make a lot of changes in order to see that their products are being bought. The more numbers who kind of say, okay, we're not going to buy junk, we're not going to buy food which is just being marketed as healthy, then the food industry will have to sit up and take notice. They will have to make changes.
so then people like us have to create that awareness also.
Yes.
Then
And like I
start.
said, initially when I spoke to you and Kanis, I'm not a child nutritionist. My thing over here is to make the adults think, because
Yeah,
it is us who finally are going to pass on something to the children.
definitely. And it's like uh, children, if their minds are programmed for good food initially, they'll continue to be growing
Yes.
up as
Yes.
aware adults. And yes, this is going to be as a culture being passed on from one generation to the other very nicely.
Yes.
So something I really loved was serotonin. I mean, there are techniques where we are using some stories, specific stories for serotonin, and I was, you know, I was amazed when I heard that it is released by the gut. That
Yes.
was really amazing for me.
It is
Yes.
released by the gut because of the kind of protein that we see. Protein, there are, you would know, there are things called essential amino acids. Now, tryptophan is one of the essential amino acid, and it's called essential because our body doesn't produce it. Our body is so magnificent that we produce a lot of things within ourselves, which is required for our development, for our immunity and all of that. But there are certain things which we get only from food. And tryptophan is one of those kind of protein related amino acids, which we get only from food. And when this tryptophan goes into our gut, then the gut starts producing serotonin. So
And which food product has tryptophan?
a lot of our meats have tryptophan. A lot of vegetables which are rich in protein, like mushrooms, avocado, broccoli, they also will give us some amount of tryptophan. Yeah. Only thing is, when we look at vegetarian sources of protein, the quantity that comes would be different from a non-vegetarian source of protein, but it's still there. Nature's already provided for that.
That's really amazing.
Really amazing. That's what even I felt this.
Legumes. You specifically for a vegetarian, legumes like our beans, our red kidney beans or rajma, all of them again have amino acids which are good for us.
Okay, Rajma has that. Okay. I'm a pure vegetarian, so I was more concerned about it.
Okay. Yes.
So is it all right to add ragi atta or the other atta, the coarse attas with the normal wheat atta? Is it all right? The chana atta?
So like I said, maybe we can't make all the dramatic changes at one point of time. So if you want to add a little bit of the fibrous atta with the refined atta, not maida. When I say atta, it's atta, whole wheat atta.
Whole
So
wheat.
to do that, then yes, start with that. Then if you can progress on to reducing the amount of refined flour and using more of the, fiber containing flour, it's good to. And like you said, if you can add ragi and millets flour to your atta and use it, even that's an option. Yes.
Yeah, that's been an amazing, session for us also. And yes, for our viewers also. Thank you so much, Nirmala. It was an awesome interaction with you. And yes, there were so many Bhagwan moments for us. And I hope food and mind, they are very well connected. We understood, and our viewers also got to know that. And yes, we look forward to learning more from you and having many more sessions from you. And today, we thank you from the core of our hearts. You came and you just, told us so many amazing things and educated us. And thank you so much for being here with us. And yes, we are going to have a workshop coming up on 1st December. And yes, all the viewers can join us to know more about the brain. We specifically are working for the brains. That's going to be at 8:30 p.m. So looking forward to having you all with us. And yes, all of those who want to connect with Dr. Nirmala, so we will give the details in the comment box and you can connect with her also. Thank you so much, Nirmala. And it was a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Kanis, for giving me the time to explain something that's very dear to me, especially when I see metabolic issues in children. And like I had explained, I've gone through it right from childhood. And to see other children when they are struggling with it, whatever I can do in terms of my part to create awareness, that's what I'm trying to do. Today, there are a lot of options available for parents, and I think if they are struggling with nutrition, they do need to get in touch with a child nutritionist and see what needs to be done. It's not a matter of somebody giving you a diet chart. It's a matter of somebody giving you options, right? And then you learn how to kind of appropriate these options into your daily living. And if that can be done, we are providing a safer future to our children. Yeah.
Safer, healthier, and an easy life also. So many problems get resolved. just at the nutrition level only. Your breakfast, lunch, and dinner can solve so many problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
Dr. Nirmala, for being here with us. It was a pleasure moment and looking forward to having you in some other sessions also.
Thank you,
Thank
Kanis,
you.
so
Thanks a
much.
lot. Okay.
Bye.
So
Okay.
viewers, if you have any comments regarding nutrition, Dr. Nirmala would be willing to answer to all your queries. Also, do let us know in the comment section whatever you have, your challenges in regarding nutrition, regarding food plan and diet. So we'll be there to help you out. Goodbye.